Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Well, today we're continuing our ongoing coverage of the war between the Russian Federation and the Ukraine, backed by its Western nation states, the United States, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and various Western European powers. Now, the United States has given authorization for the Ukrainians to use ATACMS and other long-range precision strike weapon systems deep inside of Russia. They're specifically saying that the Ukrainians are allowed to attack Russian targets in which areas that the Russians are launching offensive operations. So specifically, the region around Belgorod. Obviously, there is a Russian operation designed to create a buffer zone just to the south and to the northeast of Kharkov. What the United States is telling the Ukrainians, well, you now have the ability to launch and attack targets near Belgorod with these U.S. weapon systems. Now, again, go back to the very early stages of the war, and in terms of what was being said and what the United States was going to give and what the United States was going to allow the Ukrainians to use. And I've often talked about how this war is slowly escalating. Remember, it would have been unthinkable at the start of this conflict that the U.S. would hand over ATACMS, and ATACMS would then start to be used to attack targets deep inside of Russia. Now look, the Russians are attacking infrastructure targets of the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians are responding in kind. Now, the only issue with this is these are American systems. These systems are coming directly from European powers or from the United States. They're handed over to the Ukrainians. And more importantly, most of the time, the strategic targeting, identifying Russian targets to be hit, is being done by the United States. The United States is providing the Ukrainians with targets that they can strike. Now, at the same time, they're also providing the Ukrainians weapon systems to strike these targets. So, on one hand, the Russians are hitting these targets deep inside of Ukraine. But on the other hand, you have to ask the question, is it the Ukrainians actually striking these targets? Look, the Ukrainians would not know where to launch these missiles, these long-range missiles, to hit these Russian targets deep inside the Russian Federation. And then compounding that, the U.S. has handed over weapon systems that will be used to hit those targets deep inside of Russia. So the question I think is coming from the Russians is, well, who's launching these attacks? Is it the Ukrainians, or is it actually NATO and the United States? Again, the targeting information is coming from the United States. The missiles are coming from the United States. So you see where this gets tricky. Now, additionally, the U.S. is now requesting that all available Patriot missile systems and NASAMS, the National Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile System, it is this system right here, available missiles are to be transferred to the Ukrainians. So Western European powers, powers in the Middle East that have purchased these systems, well, these systems are now going to go to Ukraine as opposed to the actual end user who originally purchased these systems. The United States doesn't have a vast production capacity to produce the NASAMS. They also have limited production capability of providing the AIM-120, which is the ground launch AMRAAMs. That is what makes this system such a very effective and robust surface-to-air missile system. Now, these systems are going to go to the Ukrainians. Even systems that may have been originally destined for, say, Taiwan, these systems are now going to go to the Ukrainians, as are Patriot missiles as well. Not necessarily the launchers, but the missiles. Both the ground launch AIM-120 and then obviously the Patriot missiles themselves for the Patriot PAC-2s and possibly PAC-3s that will be used by the Ukrainians. Now, also, the Russians have started deploying a new weapon system. So I talked about a month ago, I had brought up the fact that the Russians in all probability would start using the FAB3000. These are 3,000 kilogram guided glide bombs. So what they're essentially doing, the Russians, are taking older Soviet FAB3000 air-launched bombs, dumb bombs, and they are converting them into what are essentially air-launched, long-range, precision strike glide weapons. So here's an article I want to go through real quick. On June 20th, Russian forces used the new FAB3000 M54 bomb with a Unified Planning and Correction Module, the UMPC, to strike Ukrainian positions in the Kharkov region for the first time, representing a new Russian capability with a high potential for destruction if Russian forces continue to be able to use such weapons uninhibited. The Institute for the Study of War said, Russian sources widely amplified footage of the first ever FAB3000 M54 strike against a reported Ukrainian deployment point in Lipsty, Kharkov region on June 20th, noting that the bomb caused substantial destruction even though it landed 10 meters away from its intended target. So look, if a 6,600-pound bomb lands 10 meters away from you, it doesn't matter. You are going to die. And in all probability, if you're in an armored vehicle, if you're in a building, what have you, you're looking at a bomb that has over a ton of high explosive in that system, and it's detonating 10 meters away. So yeah, you can expect that that weapon system is going to start being used more and more. And on top of that, it's such a heavy, large bomb that if and when it's launched, that let's say Ukrainians start using its air defense systems against these very large guided glide bombs, there's a very good possibility they won't do much to those bombs just because of the size of those bombs. Now, analysis note that the FAB3000 usage will increase the destructive potential of Russia's ongoing glide bomb attacks against Ukrainian forces and infrastructure. Russian forces have already increased guided and unguided glide bomb use against Ukraine, particularly in the Kharkov region, to devastating effect. And should Russian forces be able to launch massive barrages of FAB3000s, which they are going to do, I mean, I guarantee, look, if the U.S. is allowing ATACMS strikes to hit near Belgorod, the Russians are just going to up the ante. And you're going to see these FAB3000s hit a wide variety of targets. Not only that, they're going to go after subsurface targets. They're going to go after bunkers in which you have Ukrainian command staff operating in these bunkers. And that's what's going to be designed to kill those command staff. And that's what's going to happen. And I've talked about before in previous episodes the fact that, usually the Ukrainians aren't housing their troops in military bases. They're being housed in buildings. They're being housed in civilian apartments. And through intelligence and other means, both human and surveillance systems, satellite, drone, what have you. The Russians are identifying those targets, and they're going to start using those FAB3000s to attack some of those buildings. And again, many of these buildings have bunkers, Soviet-era bunkers under these buildings. And these FAB3000s will be designed to penetrate into these buildings and then destroy these underground bunkers. And the Russians have been successful in doing that with the more expensive Iskander ballistic missile system. But with the FAB3000s, they're just as effective as the Iskander. They're just less expensive. So you can get the same bang for your buck. You can destroy a bunker underground, but you don't have to use a vastly more expensive Iskander weapon system. They can use their Iskanders to go after Patriot systems and said systems like that in this ongoing missile war. So again, just another escalatory process within this war, and it will continue. And the Russian offensive continues, and at multiple points along the line of contact. And again, thank you for joining us today. That does it for today. We will have more very, very soon. And as always, thanks for joining us. Have a good day.